Welcome to That Just Doesn't Make Sense, the Nature of Things. Episode 16, Progressivism, Intellectual Movement. Welcome to the continuing series on progressivism, continuing our analysis of the article from the Center for American Progress, titled The Progressive Intellectual Tradition in America. Progressivism as an intellectual movement emerged between 1890 and 1920. As a response to the multitude of problems associated with the industrialization of the U.S. economy. Frequent economic depressions, political corruption, rising poverty, low wages, poor working conditions, tenement living, child labor, lack of collective bargaining power, unsafe consumer products, and the misuse of natural resources. In this episode, we're going to focus on a specific section of the article I just read to you. In this section, it tells us when the movement emerged into the public and political landscape. It states that a response to the multitude of problems associated with the industrialization of the U.S. economy. I stopped right there because I want to review the list of so-called problems. Why did I phrase so-called? Because I want to vet their premises. So let us start with tenement living. Now, when I first read this document and I came to that accusation, a question formed in my mind. What exactly was a tenement? And how widespread was the problem? So I did what I always do. I researched it. By 1900, 2.3 million people lived in tenement housing in New York City alone. That was 2/3 of the entire population of the city. A typical tenement building was 5 to 7 stories high and filled its entire lot. Apartment units were around 300 square feet. Large families, sometimes in the teens in numbers, were crammed into those spaces. There was poor ventilation and poor lighting. Most units did not even have a window or access to a fire escape. Before 1867, tenements occupied 90% of the lot. They were 5 to 6 stories high, with 18 rooms per floor, and only 2 of those rooms received direct sunlight. Privacy and yards were only a few feet wide. By 1878, a publication offered $500 to the architect who could provide the best design for mass housing. That tells you right there that people understood the problem existed and needed solving. The conditions were real, the evidence was real. Now, let us look at child labor. According to the census report from 1890, over 1.5 million children between the ages of 10 and 15 were employed. That number comprised almost 20% of all children in that age group, or that age range. By 1900, that rate increased. More than 1 in 5 children were working. Between 1890 and 1910, no less than 18% of all children ages 10 to 15 worked. In 1904, 25% of all cotton mill workers were children, and almost half of them were under the age of 12. Children were easier to manage. They asked for little in terms of safety measures, and they accepted significantly less pay than adult laborers. The conditions were real. The evidence is clear. Now, let us look at lack of collective bargaining power. Before 1920, workers had no legal right to collectively bargain with their employers. Individual workers would negotiate with their bosses, but employers had the power. They could hire and fire at will. They could set wages and hours without worker input. Union membership grew during the Progressive Era and especially during World War I, when the government took a conciliatory approach toward labor to prevent work stoppages. Union membership in the American Federation of Labor surged 50% between 1917 and 1919. But here is the thing. After World War I, the labor movement lost ground rapidly. Union membership dropped from more than 5 million members in 1920 to 3.6 million by 1923. That is a loss of over 1.3 million members in just 3 years. And by 1929, the labor movement was weaker than it had been since the 1890s. Why? Because industrialists, including John D. Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan, led an anti-union campaign under the patriot banner called National Security League. The conditions were real. The evidence is clear. But here is where I want you to start asking yourself some questions. All three of these problems, tenement living, child labor, and lack of collective bargaining power, these were addressed in the early part of the 20th century. Housing codes were established, child labor laws were passed, and the National Labor Relations Act was passed in 1935, which gave workers the legal right to organize and bargain collectively. If progressivism emerged as a response to these problems between 1890 and 1920, and laws were passed to address them, then the question you need to ask yourself is this: did those laws solve the problems? Or did they create new ones? Because poverty still exists, substandard housing still exists, unequal wages still exist, child exploitation still happens, just in different forms, and American workers still struggle for fair treatment. If the progressive movement was supposed to fix these things, and we are all still dealing with them 100 years later, then either the solutions did not work or progressivism was never actually trying to solve them in the first place. Those are the logical two conclusions. I want you to take the time to research each of these three topics for yourself. Look at the housing codes that were established. Look at the labor laws that were passed. Look at the Labor Relations Act. Read them. Understand what they actually say. And then ask yourself, did these laws actually improve the lives of people, or did they just shift the problem somewhere else? Because that is what matters. Not the intention, not the promise, the actual result. Does it make sense? I hope this episode was able to get you to say to yourself, maybe he has something here. Or, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Either way, I don't care. I only care about you coming up with an answer that is based upon your own research and your own reasoning. And if you should be moved to, post a comment regarding it, and we can discuss it in another episode. Thank you for watching and listening. And don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single episode, and we'll catch you on the next one.